Need another one. Ah, that's better. Well, we're pretty close. Wait a minute, that clock says 9:32. Oh, daylight savings time. I'm glad you all remembered. I did too. Boy, that alarm went off early. Somebody said, don't think of it as losing an hour of sleep. Think of it as losing an hour of winter. Some of us like winter, so yeah, so anyhow, I'm glad you're here. Welcome. We will now have the lighting of the chalice. Any children who would like to help can come up and send the forth. Rebecca's going to be lighting the chalice. She's got a microphone. Any kids? The kids aren't in the Sunday school, are they? Donna's going to check. I don't see any kids. No kids. Okay. All right. Before the lighting of the chalice, I just want to open with these words from Crazy Horse. I see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole earth will become one circle again.
And if you'll join me,
I'll hold it.
at times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us.
Welcome, one and all. I'm glad you've joined us for worship today with the community of First Unitarian Church of Omaha. I'm Douglas Learigier. It says right here in my notes. I'm the worship coordinator for today's service. A special welcome to visitors, whether you are joining us online or in person. This congregation is a community of all ages and abilities. It is a community with a rainbow of gender and sexual identities. It is a community of diverse cultural and class backgrounds. We draw from many sources of inspiration and share common liberal religious values. Whoever you may be, we welcome you to bring your whole self into this community. Each week we acknowledge that where we meet for worship as the First Unitarian Church of Omaha is the land of the Omaha, Oto nations, and that indigenous people in the greater community have become marginalized and made invisible. May we recognize their presence among us and work with them to resolve the issues of poverty, displaced children, and murdered and missing indigenous women, the MMIW. And I want to welcome especially our guest speaker, John Pappan. And is Roberta not here yet? Okay. Oh, we'll look for her, the dancer. Okay. Today, John Pappan, a member of the Omaha tribe, will speak on ancient indigenous history. The talk will be preceded by a prayer with a drum. There will also be a round dance, we hope, and a ladies' dance during the service, and an arts and crafts table in the foyer after the service. Oh, I would especially want to mention that. John does have some arts and crafts that he's going to be putting on the table out and back. His talk, Ancient Indigenous History, is a little-known rich history precedes European colonization and gives rise to much of what we call civilization today. And now, John, if you're... Oh, he'll need the microphone up here. We had really hoped for the children to join in the round dance. We'll just have to ask for those who are young at heart to join in. You want to use this microphone?
Welcome, everyone. As we say, ahochage, which means hello, friends. Omaha Amble, which means I am Omaha, from the Omaha Nation, and also have Pawnee blood as well. So them two are my heritage. I was born and raised here in Omaha, Nebraska. I'll be going on 62 come April, so. This is a prayer song, and basically the translation is, Father God, we think of you and pray to you first. Grandfather, we honor you so that we may have a long life with all our relatives here on earth. Wakantanka toka heya. Wakantanka toka heya. Che wakielo hey. Hey mitaku yeo waniktacha toka heya che wakielo hayo. Tunkashila toka heya che wakielo hai. Hey mitaku yeo waniktacha toka heya che wakielo hai. Wakantaka toka heya che wakielo hey. Wakantaka toka heya che wakielo yeh. Hey mitaku yeo waniktacha toka heya che wakielo hey. Tunkashila toka heya che wakielo hey. Hey taku yeo wanik dacha toka heya che wakielo hai ho ewe langi miktaki wasi all my relations. Yeah, we can do an
Just have people come up here.
yeah, have the kids come
Yeah, there's not any kids. We got lots of kids out here.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll invite them to come up. Okay, John's going to lead in a round dance, and I would invite all the kids, all the young at heart kids, and a few people at least come on up front and join in with this round dance up here. Otherwise, you can do the round dance by dancing in your chair.
The whole hands in a circle, basically.
And John's going to give you instructions. She got cold feet. Close that circle, or open it, as they say. There we go. Any instructions?
We can just go turn clockwise as I sing here.
Okay. Turn clockwise as John sings.
So make sure the Zoom people hear me here. So, okay. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya, hey, hey ya, ya, hey, oh hey, o takia, o ka, hey ya, che wa kielo, hey, o chokan waji, yo hae, o takichi, miksuya, o page, o hey, hey, chanuki, ne toka shela, wani ahute lo hey. Ay, 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 ho, elo, hey. Ay, ay, ay,
I was feeling like I needed to get up and dance, but I was too slow. Thank you, John. So I guess, by the way, the round dance was the story for all ages. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's definitely a part of the tradition. And I would just say, from my own experience, another way to see that, participate in it, would be to go to the powwow at Metro Community College sometime this summer. I'm not sure when it is, and participate there. I just want to say special thanks to John for being here and doing these things for us. I've known John for a long time. We go way back. John, I can't remember how far. Ancient history. Oh, you're talking about ancient history, but we have some ancient history between us. And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from John about Native culture and about how we can relate to it. You know, we say in our land acknowledgement every week that we honor the indigenous people and seek ways to lift them up. And you know, my dad was a Baptist preacher, and he always said, when you make a prayer is good, he said, but put legs on your prayers. I would say put action on our land acknowledgement and find ways. We as a congregation are finding ways to support the indigenous community. Today's service is one. We also make our common room available anytime the Omaha people want to have a gathering of any kind. They have different rules than we do. They can have a meal down there, and so on. And John and I have even started talking. It hasn't gone through any committees yet, but about using our kitchen downstairs as a cook shelter, cook shack, to make Indian tacos when they have jazz on the green over there, and have people go over and sell them there. So that would be a real good. John has a list of other things that we can support. I'm not sure when that'll come out, but there are lots of ways for us to do that collectively and individually. So now it is time for the early morning risers to lead us in a song. They are going to sing, and the congregants are given permission, I should say, to sing along. So keep your mask up, but belt it out. They're singing page 1051 in the Teal hymnal, page 1051, We Are. And Mary Kay tells me that this is a little complicated, so pay attention as she's singing.
Don't worry, I'm going to lead everybody, so just sing along with me.
And we are going to skip the middle repeat. So the big repeat on page 2 and 3, we're just doing it one time, and we'll just go right on.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of the ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time. We are daughters of dust, sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
All right, Colin, do we have internet connection? Either way. Yeah, he'll need a microphone. So I've asked Colin, because I don't multitask all that well, like reading off a screen while I'm standing in front of a microphone. So Colin is going to share from online, from the Zoom chat, any joys and concerns, and I think at least one that was submitted ahead of time. Go ahead, Colin.
First, I want to start out with one that was submitted by Elaine Wells. As a marriage and relationship counselor, I am often surprised that nobody mentions their primary relationship partner as one of their joys in their life. Maybe we take that person for granted or think we should not sing their praises. I believe a loving partner should be appreciated and celebrated both privately and publicly. So here's gratitude to my partner, Henry. And we'll see if there's any joys or concerns that come up in the chat here. Not seeing any. Give it a couple minutes. From Chloe. My joy is my partner, Yumi, who introduced me to this community. Any more? Might be it for now.
Okay. Give them just a moment. I put in on as my joy for the day, the turning of the seasons, the vernal equinox coming up, next Saturday, I believe, the 21st. That's a time of year when you drive down Dodge Street, you get a full face on to the sunset in the afternoon or the sunrise in the morning. It's right there in your eyes, reminding you that it is, in fact, the time for a changing of season. Okay. And so now we're going to have a stewardship time, and Walt Jested is going to lead us in that. While he's coming up, I'll just mention that at the end of the service, during the announcements, Donna will have a drawing for a prize for the stewardship drive. So.
Thank you. You know, Donna and I joined this church more than 25 years ago, looking for religious education for our 3 boys. The boys are all gone now. They're in 3 different time zones, none of them this one, but we're still here. We're here because the church became our family in Omaha, and we remain very close to it. That's why I agreed this year to chair the stewardship campaign. The goal of the campaign is to obtain the pledges and the financial commitments necessary to fund the church for the coming year, to fund the force of social justice, the force of RE, and all the other forces that we hold dear. To do that, we need to talk a little bit about money. I've done that before. Before retiring, I worked for 30 years as the director of the research program at the Boys Town Research Hospital, where finding the money was a big concern. I was accused at one staff meeting of spending too much time talking about money and not enough time talking about ideas. My reply was that nobody ever came into my office looking for more ideas. And it's much the same here. We have more ideas than we have money. For those who are new here, I want to emphasize that we don't talk about money like this 12 months a year at these services. Our goal of the research of the stewardship program is to obtain the money we need for the year by talking about ideas and money during the month of March, and then for the remaining 11 months of the year, we can just talk about ideas. So we may at other times talk about special causes or things in the community that would be benefiting from our support, but this is the time that we look for the money to run the church and its programs for the year. Churches are expensive. We have a budget this coming year, starting May 1, of $438,000. About 70% of that is to pay our staff and provide fringe benefits, and that's typical of other churches of this size, both the budget and the percentage. And to obtain that money, we have investments, we rent out the space for weddings, we do other fundraising kinds of things, but the bulk of the money has to come from us. So our goal this year for the stewardship campaign is to obtain pledges of $300,000. Even if we succeed in doing that, our budget still calls for us to use reserve funds on the order of $30,000 to make the budget work for the year. So we're not in danger of being too successful in terms of this campaign. Everybody has received pledge forms in the mail. There's a pledge form you can fill out online very conveniently. There's a stewardship page online. There's a link on the main page of the church website. There's other information there, as there was in the mailing. A lot of financial detail for those who want it. The pledge form and the stuff we mailed out have a fair share guideline that indicates for various levels of income and commitment to the church what your pledge really ought to be. And we have people who follow those guidelines, and we have a number of pledges above $10,000 a year, for example. But we have others who have had the same pledge for 5 or 10 years running, much smaller numbers. We need to obtain more distribution of pledges, as Reverend Sherry pointed out last week, moving up to the higher end so that we're not always dependent on a few families for the money. We had that problem with the Dick Holland money. We don't want to maintain that kind of a pattern. So the guidelines ask a lot for those who have higher incomes, and we hope you'll take a look at them for those who are able to increase your pledge and do that before filling out the pledge form. There's more financial information on the website. I'm always happy to talk about any additional details you would like, and I'm also happy to talk about ideas. Thank you very much.
Walt. Okay, now it's time to put it into action. If the ushers would please come forward. We actually passed the, it says in my notes, the basket, but I believe it's a plate. So we'll do that at this time. Every week, half of the loose currency, all of the checks go to the church budget. Half of the loose currency does, and half goes. Each month, 1/2 of the loose currency in the offering plate is donated to a cause with a local presence, which advances important principles of Unitarian Universalism. In March, we are supporting the Women's Center for Advancement. The WCA assists anyone in the Omaha area who is experiencing domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking. For those in the sanctuary, ushers will pass the offering plate, so you may remain seated. Those online will find a donation link in the chat. The offering will now be taken. One for your gifts, and thank you, Stan, for that music. And now we are going to be honored with some very special music by Stan. And I just want to mention that this was requested music by John Pappan. So it's our theme for today.
And Lloyd, too. Stan and Lloyd.
He's really getting into it when his face gets red and he starts really blowing hard. It's beautiful. I love Stan's sax music, all of his music. So thank you. Well, I mentioned that I have known John Pappan, our guest speaker, for a long time. Some of the most cherished times for me have been when he has taught me stuff. Not always so comfortable. No arrows in my back, John. But I remember one day specifically, I don't know when the day was, but I remember the event. John and I were talking, and he must have talked to me for an hour about the history of the Omaha people. I asked him, where, I was naive. What about this council that was in Council Bluffs? Well, he said, it's more than that, a lot more than that. And he talked about where the people had come from and the civilizations that they had built ahead of time. So, John, come on up, and it's all yours. And I'll just say at the start, we're doing well.
I wanted to thank Doug and the church for allowing me to speak at this time. It's definitely an honor to come before you. I know this church has a long history and will continue, knock on wood, as they say. Basically, what I'm going to start out with is the creation story of the Omaha and then of the Pawnee. So basically, okay, here we go. The Omaha creation story. At the beginning of all things were made in the mind of Wakanda. All creatures, including man, were spirits. They moved about in the space between the earth and the stars. They were seeking a place where they could come into bodily existence. They ascended to the sun, but the sun was not fitted for their abode. They moved on to the moon and found that was not good for their home. They descended to the earth. They saw it was covered with water. They floated through the air to the north, the east, the south, and west, and found no dry land. They were sorely grieved. So suddenly, from the midst of the water uprose a great red rock. It burst into flames, and the waters floated into the air to form clouds. The dry land appeared, the grasses and the trees grew. The host of spirits descended and became flesh and blood. They fed on the seeds of the grass and the fruits of the trees, and the land vibrated with the expressions of joy and gratitude for Wakanda, the maker of all things. This other is of the Pawnee creation story. Muscogee Pawnee is from my dad's side, which I found out from my aunt, which he never really talked about. At one time, the tribes did fight, but later on they did hunt together. They had like a hunting treaty or agreement together, so. Tirawa Atuas is the great eternal God who created all things and fulfills the needs of all creatures. He created the path of departing spirits known as the Milky Way. East of the path, he put the male principle, the morning star. To the west, he put the female principle, the evening star. All that has happened and will happen has been ordained by Tirawa, and the stars are his servants. From the east, the morning star began to pursue evening star and in order to make love to her. But she continued to elude him. She put obstacles in his path, but she kept tempting him. Why? Because it was not yet time to make living things on the earth, and she wanted him to prove his love for her. Evening star placed 10 obstacles in his way. One of the obstacles was in the chaos beneath them. There was an endless sheet of water watched over by the great serpent. The morning star threw a ball of fire at the serpent, and this caused the serpent to hide beneath the waves. As the fire hit the water, it dried up, and you could see the earth and rocks. Morning star threw a pebble into the sea of chaos, and it became the earth. When the earth was in place, Tirawa assigned 4 lesser gods to watch over it. They were of the east, the west, the north, and south. They joined hands at the edge of the great sea on earth, and a landmass emerged. Morning star finally caught up to evening star and made love to her. Soon, evening star gave birth to a little girl and placed her on a cloud and sent her to earth. High above the earth, evening star asked morning star to water her celestial garden, and he made the first rain. In the celestial gardens of evening star grew many plants, including mother maize, corn, the greatest of food plants. Evening star gave maize to her daughter as a gift to plant on a newly emerged earth. Soon the sun and moon produced a son who married the daughter of the evening star and morning star, and they are the parents of all humans, as well as the first to grow corn. This book I had run across and heard from my father. For many years he searched for the book, and it's called He Walked the Americas by L. Taylor Hansen. Back in them days, a lady, I guess, couldn't get published as well as a man could. And that L stands for Laura. So it was Laura Taylor Hansen. She was a lady, anthropologist. And what she did was that she found a elder, I believe he was Chippewa, and she asked him about the stories of the history before Columbus, the time. And he said, come back in the springtime or in the summer, and I will gather a council of elders. And so there are many tribes sent elders, and they came together, and they related a lot of this history that was before unwritten. So I wanted to read a little bit from here. We are the ancients, and our skin is red, with us the sacred color. These, our legends, are told about the campfires in winter's evening. When you string them together, remember our great pride. Now we are looking down and our feathers are drooping. Tell the legends so that our young men will realize that the ancestor thread runs in many directions. Though the tribes we have captured and with whom we have intermarried, there is a red thread which runs back to the red land, long sunken in the destruction. Atlantis. There is a thread which runs far to the south where the mountaintops touch the sky and the thunderbird moves through the lightnings. There is a golden thread which touches Tulan, the mighty, the beautiful Tula. Well, through some of our mothers, there is a white thread to the words of the prophet. Tell my young men to listen. Asa Dolugi, war chief of the Mescalero Apaches. There is evidence that some of our ancestors may have come from the ancient trading empire of the Chanchan centuries before the rise of the Inca power in Peru. Tell my people to learn of this great power which once ruled eyes. Tell them to look up and learn. Soha Kuku, chief snake priest of Oraibi. This is our book, these legends of ancient times. They are of the blood which courses through our veins. We of the 7 tribes of the black tortoise once had a dream of empire. Yet farther back through the cycles of time, we knew the great Wakanta. But we forgot his words. These legends should help us to look up and remember. Shooting star of the Hunkpapa Dakota. My dad searched long for this book, and at one time I had 2 copies. I sold one because I needed cash at the time, but I kept on to this one. It's a priceless book. I think it's out of print. This one is, it talks about the Great Turtle Empire, which was named after the main emperor among the Dakota. The mighty invasion of the Serpents fleeing from the great destruction washed the shores of the American tropics, breaking into small families, each known under their leader as a great sun, whose throne went always down through the women. All counted their time by the cycles of Venus, the star of both the dawn and evening. At the end of the 104-year cycle, and sometimes at the 52-year half cycle, their great sons met in giant conclave to check their time and pool their knowledge. From the snows of the north to the snows of the southland, they came to pool geographic knowledge. And because he who was known as the healer seemed greatly to revere the dawn star, the serpents regarded him as holy, and they were ordered not to harm him. Perhaps in the days of the prophet, serpent tribe had not yet fought against serpent tribe, as they did to the latter ages. For the region of the Mississippi during the golden days of the healer, Dakota paints us a fairly clear picture. Those we now call the great mound builders were tribes speaking the word family and branches of the Algonquin language. These were the ancients of the country. In the days of the great mound builders, whose mounds marked the sites of the cities, The mounds were a sort of writing, a manner of recording passing history, a royal marriage, a dynasty ended. They were to be read from the inside outward, and then about them swirled the cities. One had even longer history than the modern town of London. The mounds were probably faced with lumber and then painted in brilliant colors, perhaps to resemble those of the Mayans, with whom they seemed to have some commerce, which is extensive, and it went all the way up to the copper mining in Michigan. To this happy and peaceful land came the great white-robed master with his sea-green eyes and his golden sandals. Here, too, we find the only relics are probably touched by his hands or probably fashioned under his personal direction. In the spiral mound in Oklahoma, carefully excavated, the symbol of the hand with the great T-cross through its center has been recovered, along with pottery with winged beings not unlike the angels singing. In the mound of Pittsfield was found 3 pages of parchment, now held in Old Harvard, with the quotations from the Old Testament written in ancient Hebrew. And about 8 miles southeast of Newark, the father of Bancroft, the Indian recorder of legends, speaks of finding an engraved stone pictograph of the white-robed teacher. About his head in ancient Hebrew were the words of the 10 Commandments, his hair and beard well pictured, as well as his flowing toga. Many mounds have been plowed and leveled, their contents scattered, which the red men held as holy, planting trees of the sacred cedar upon them to keep them safe to 2 millennia. True, the invasion of the Serpents from perhaps 700 AD onward, coming up the Mississippi, and the long snake-painted dugouts carrying the sacred fire, brought to an end to a peaceful living, brought with them war and pillage to the priesthood of the sacrificers. Yet they turned away from the hills of cedar, seeing the symbols of the healer. When I first came across this work, it really touched me. And it showed me that what my father had told me at one time, as a young child, barely able to see over a table. At this time in the springtime, when the first thunder, which was last week, you hear the first thunder, that's when the people prepare and they bring out their holy and sacred bundles, the medicine bundles. And then they clean them out, they air them out, replace things and dust them off. And at this one time, my father saw this particular bundle was opened up. And in it, he saw a plate, a gold plate with ancient writing on it that was kept by this bundle keeper. This was done secretly. This was always kept a secret because we all know what happens when you show the Europeans that you have gold. They come and they plunder and they take it. A lot of the artifacts of the people from the Americas have been melted down for ingots. So for this reason, he kept it secret. And that's another quest to find out what happened to that. How much time I got? Okay. Well, you have to tell me so. I could go on for a long time here, but okay. There's one main one I wanted to get out here. The voice of Dakota. I was invited here to speak of Wakoma, the fair god who ruled the ocean and speak in whispers to the windstorm. Our name is not the one you gave him, for when he came, we lived far to the southward, where the sun makes shorter shadows, and our cities were built on islands, many of which have since gone down into the ocean. After he left, he forgot his teachings, and we returned to the ways of the fire god. As our land became scarcer due to storm and great shaking, one tribe sought among us to be master. They began conquering city after city. We dispossessed, who would not live in slavery to those of our same heritage, sought the mountains, many tribes in council. From the traders we knew of the Mississippi, and so in our long canoes, carrying our sacred fire, we began our migrations. We of the turtle, keepers of the books and learning, led the many tribes of the serpents up the great father of waters, the Mississippi. To commemorate that, we built the great mound of the serpent, which is led by the tortoise. I have yet to talk to the gathering I'm going to, but when I do, I will relate this story to them. Because many people have looked, and of course the scientists all have their theories of the serpent with an egg. But no, it's very old, and so the quote egg actually was the turtle. The feet, the head and tail had worn away, and that's why they thought it was an egg, but it was actually the turtle, as they say here. It is too bad that we had to take your cities. Many years we traded in peace and traded. For sometimes we moved, but to fill the belly. Such was our move into the woodland among the herds which were for the taking. When one has hungry children, those herds mean life. Such was our move up the Mississippi. Near White Man's Town, St. Louis, where stood your great capital city, we built our capital. We did not destroy the crest of your building where you had written your history, but we added to them. The white man was the destroyer of both our histories and ours. We realized our need, and you moved northward, and there was peace between us. Then there grew up in the capital city the black tortoise, Dakota, who served our tribe. He had a great dream for the red man. He dreamed of the mighty kingdom, solidly from sea of the sunrise to the sea of the sunset. He could not gain the emperor's attention, and he left for the northern cities where lived your people. Though you were a peaceful nation, his pleadings did not go unanswered. Ears were open to what he was saying. In the west there is much fighting. The fierce warriors come from the northland, bringing great war dogs with them. We call them the men of the coyote, with the Navajo and the Diné. They burn and plunder and carry away the women. They would force themselves into cities, and I would conquer them and make them peaceful. I would build one mighty nation, as in the old red land, Atlantis, which we both remember, which was ruled by two together. So I would have you rule with me this mighty country. In your cities of the Northland, you listened to the voice of Dakota. You gave him armies to train, your sons to learn the arts of warfare. Dakota was a mighty general. He conquered the Tortoise Empire and made his own mound after the mound of extinction. We might have succeeded in his dream, except that more of the hordes of the Northmen came afresh down the west coast, decimating his armies, and then civil war broke out over the Dakota Empire. Cities were abandoned. Each tribe took to the forest to raid, pillage, and play at war games like naughty children. You asked me to tell you of the great Wakoma. Our memory of him is greatly distorted, for so long ago was he living. We knew that he prayed to the dawn star, and today in his memory, we make sacred lodge that carries that name. And to the memory of him, we make this symbol. There is so much more that the people have. And to those lucky ones, a lot of this had been shared, but none of it had been written down. A lot of the history is passed down by oral history, word of mouth. in the east, in the state of New York, the Iroquois people are the Six Nations. They had a prophet come to them called Deganawitha, and he brought the great law of peace. And the great law of peace, through that form of government, the early founders, they marveled at that, Benjamin Franklin and the others. And they modeled the United States after that government that the Iroquois had that was based on the great law of peace. Professor Bruce Hansen at UNO, he knows about this. He has Mr. John Mohawk as his really good friend. I hope he's still alive, but I don't know. So the teachings of this government in the Constitution, they had the form, but they did not have the spirit thereof. So when the elders at that time referred to the United States, they called them the 13 campfires. But as the elders would say, there were no fires in the United States. The fire is a metaphor, the symbol of spirit. So they took the form, but they did not understand the teachings that went along with it. And so they only understood to a certain extent. Great materialism and great wealth is here. But let's remember, it all because of the land that was taken or stolen from the native people. So all of you, what they call white privilege, have your wealth and all that you enjoy from my ancestors that in some cases they did not willingly give up and died for this because we love this land and we still love it. Let us come together so we could preserve it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, John. There's so much to be learned. And he didn't even touch on the history that he told me, so we'll have to have him back for that. Thanks again. So, closing music. Sorry.
Our last song is actually a song called Memphis Underground. It's a jazz song by a flute player named Herbie Mann. And since we had this here, we thought we should do one more. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. For the closing words, I've chosen, I found it on Google, Plains Indian proverb. Give me knowledge so that I may have kindness for all. We have some announcements, and then for those on Zoom, can stay tuned for the breakout session. And it's going to be a very special event up here in just a minute. So, but I want to start with the announcement about the survey that was in the recent mailing. I understand, email. I understand there wasn't a great, well, this was a week ago. Now they're wanting more responses to that. It's a survey about safety guidelines here at church and what we can do in that regard and what you'd like, both on Zoom and in person and so on. So if you missed that, please find it in the recent e-blast and complete it today. Secondly, I want to remind you that April 2nd is a really big day. It's a Saturday, not a Sunday. And on that day, we will be holding the grand installation of our settled minister, the Reverend Sherry Woodbury. It's been put off a few times. She said, we're not. Thank you. Yeah. It's going to be a great event. And she said, this time we're holding it. Right. So, and there's a lot of people working on that. In fact, they're asking for additional choir members to have a bigger choir. I also want to mention that the Afghan refugee family that we've helped sponsor have been moved into their house, and there's a place on the e-blast where you can volunteer still to help with that effort. So now, before we go, Donna Neff is coming up, and her trusty helper. And she's got a little surprise for you.
Things got a little turned around. This is really Walt's project, although I admit the Baby Yoda is my idea. So we call these pledge appreciation prizes, which means when the church receives a pledge, your name goes in this hat for the rest of the month, and each week we will draw a name, and we have 10 donated gift cards for different places for $25. And if your name is drawn, you get to pick which one you want, and we'll mail it to you. So
we have about 23 names in here. We currently have a pledge total of about $90,000 out of our $300,000 goal. So we're doing well.
So first of all, thank you to everyone. And here is the first winner. And Linda Hess.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay. So the earlier you pledge, the more weeks you'll be in the drawing.
Darn, I meant to have mine in. I'm sure it'll be done this week pronto. The person taking care of it will say that. All right, that's it for today's service. I'm hoping that you'll stop by. John is going to be in the foyer, I believe, with some things that you can look at, purchase if you'd like, and you can stop by and say aho to him. And that's it for now. Thank you for coming. And be sure on Zoom that you stay tuned if you want to for the breakout session. Thank you.